Well, continuing on our journey now, we're going to look at a specific type of sequence called arithmetic. Now, the cool thing is, when I was in school, really, yes, I know you're probably saying a long, long time ago when they rode dinosaurs to school. Yeah, thanks a lot. I ain't that old. But we used to study something called arithmetic, not math. And we're talking about arithmetic in like grade 1 and grade 2. This just meant adding and subtracting. That's what arithmetic means. So putting the accent on the other syllable, we call it arithmetic, but it refers to the same thing, adding and subtracting. And if you look at this, it says a sequence in which the difference between consecutive terms is a constant. Yeah, we talked about that. That's what a sequence is. But why do we call it arithmetic? Well, I want to show you something. In an arithmetic sequence, terms can be determined by adding a constant. We call that constant. Highlight this, underline this in your notes. Take this out to the movies, whatever you want to do to make sure that you remember this. But that constant we call a common difference. Do you see why we use arithmetic? Exactly. Common difference over and over and over again. Case in point, look at this. In this example, you're going from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8. 8 to 10, but notice the 3 dots, which tell you that you're going on forever and ever. This now becomes, instead of a finite sequence, this becomes an infinite sequence because it never ends. Now, getting to the point here, as we're going from 2 to 4, we're increasing by 2. 4 to 6, increasing by 2. 6 to 8, increasing by 2, and so on. We're always increasing by 2. There's the common one. But my question is, why do you call it a common difference? Well, I want to look down at this little definition right down here because it's really quite important. It says the difference between successive terms. Whoa. What do I mean successive terms? Okay, hold on. Maybe we should take a step back and start talking about terms. All right, so let's talk about the idea of terms. This is actually considered to be the first term. That's why we call it T1. But in older curriculum, in older mathematics, they may actually refer this as an A term. This is actually called the first term. So even though the first term is 2, we call that T1, or the first term. This would be T2, right? This would be T3. This would be T4. This would be T5, and so on and so on and so on. And this continues on forever and ever because after all, it is infinite. So that's why I call this guy Tn. Okay, so that is like the nth term, and you can put any number you want in there. Okay, so Tn is also known as the nth term. Sometimes you might see it written as the last term, but most of the time they'll refer to it as the nth term. Okay, so now we got a few things going on here. We got an infinite sequence. We know we're going up by a constant value we call a common difference. We're calling each one of these term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4, and so on. But I still haven't addressed the idea that why is this called a common difference? Well, if you look at this, it says it's the difference between successive terms. What do I mean? Look, this is your first term. Here's your second term. If you take the difference between them by taking the second term, the term in front of it, subtract the term before it, you get 2. Look, I'll take 10. Subtract the term before it. Now do you see why it's called a difference? And look at this. You'll always get 2 in this particular sequence, which means, guess what? If you always get 2 and it's done by subtraction, aha! That's why we call it a common difference. Aha, now I see. So can I take any term at all? Absolutely you can. All you have to do is say, okay, I'm going to take 8. Subtract the term before it. Subtract 6. And this gives you, again, 2. Notice how you're always getting 2. That's your common difference. Okay, so a couple more things to put on here. The difference may actually be negative or positive. If you remember this question that we did back here, this one here in the previous podcast, look what we had. We had it going down by -5. So check it out. Take a term, subtract the term before it. Look at that. You get -5. Watch. Take a term, Subtract the term before it. Subtract a -1. Guess what? You still get -5. -5 is your common difference because that's how you get from one term to the next. Do you see it? All right. Okay, so let's go back to the question we were working on right here. Now, here's another thing that we have to figure out is something called the general term. What does a general term mean? General term is an expression that directly determines any term of the sequence. It's, for example, the general term is your Tn term. It's your nth term. But if you look at it in this case, look what we got here. We have an actual formula that helps us figure out what that term is. So remember, term 1 was our first term. Term 2 was our second term. Term 3 was our third term, and so on and so on. Well, here's a brand new formula that allows us to figure out a brand new sequence. And it tells us any term you want can be determined by this formula. Well, that's easy enough to do because all I have to do is say, oh, I want term, I don't know, let's try to find term 4. Okay, what does that mean? Well, look at this. Wherever there was an n now, right, that has to replace it with a 4. So this would be 3 times 4 plus 2. 3 times 4, that's 12, plus 2, guess what? That works out to be 14. So your fourth term in this sequence, this one, specifically this one, your fourth term in this sequence is 14. So there's a lot of information on this particular podcast. I would strongly suggest you go back and rewatch this one. It's only 6.5 minutes long. Watch it and see what kind of stuff that's really, really important. Make a few notes for yourself.